Yeah, just refrain from voting. And then also Q, since we're the host, like as executives, it's not allowing us to vote. It only shows us the results. So I guess we can just direct message you our votes, whatever, it's fine.
Okay, sounds good. With that being said, this motion clearly passes. The meeting today has been commenced. We'll now be moving on to 2.0, which is call to order. Moving on, I'm going to pass on the floor to VP Sash to do a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. Yeah, so just please say hi if you're here. Julienne.
Hi.
Thank you. Victoria.
Hi.
Thank you. Temi. Temi, are you here tonight? Nope. Joy.
Hi.
Hi. Megan.
Hi.
Perfect. Thank you. Caitlin Madigan.
Hey.
Thank you. Catherine.
Here.
Thank you. Morgan Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Danielle.
Hi.
Thank you. Drew.
Hi.
Thank you. Dominic. Dominic, are you here? Dominic? Okay. Megan Marcias.
Here.
Thank you. Farbad. I don't think I saw Farbad. Farbad, are you here? Natasha Nair.
Hey, here, sorry.
Thank you. Ash Miller. Ash Miller. Nope. Ashla.
Here.
Thank you. Mira Gillis. I know you're here.
Here.
Morgan Martell.
Here.
Thank you. Adeline.
Here.
Thank you. Sarah.
Here.
Thank you. And Davin.
Here.
Thank you. And do we have a CUSA representative here tonight? Any CUSA representative? Nope. Do we have a CASG representative here tonight? No. CASG representative? Nope. And do we have a Charlottetown representative here tonight?
Yep, here.
Thank you. And we have the electoral board members here tonight. I think I saw them. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sash. With that being said, we're moving on to motion 3.0, which is a land declaration. So on behalf of the on behalf of the Rideau River Residence Association, I'd like to acknowledge the Algonquin Nation whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. Carleton University acknowledges the location of its campus on the traditional and unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation. In doing so, Carleton acknowledges it has a responsibility to the Algonquin people and a responsibility to adhere to Algonquin cultural protocols. With that being said, we're moving on to motion 4.0, which is the approval of the agenda. The agenda was sent out in question before the commencement of this meeting. Hope everyone had some time to look over it. I'm just gonna be relaunching the polls. Okay, this motion has passed. With that being said, we're moving on to motion 5.0, which is the executive report. Starting off with 5.1, the president's report. Jaden, you now have the floor.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I guess we had our emergency council meeting, so there's been a few things a lot to update you on. So SOAR conference. So late January, we were a stakeholder for SOAR, where we had Martin Luther King III come in and speak, and RAW provided counselors with free tickets. I hope everyone that went had a great experience. And I also was able to present a speech on my leadership journey and actually won the leadership blitz. So thank you as well to anyone or everyone who voted for me. Very much appreciated. And then the RAW port. So our RAW port, which is our executive report, has been released highlighting our midterm achievements. We were able to obtain 9 out of 12 of our achievements so far and are looking forward to hopefully getting all 12 done. However, some are unobtainable due to COVID-19. So we'll see how it goes. And you can find the report on our website at raw.ca. Reputation Enhancement Project. So I've been sitting on the Reputation Enhancement Project Committee, and the Rep Committee is essentially an initiative to, it's like designed to provide the university with a refreshed and distinctive and compelling identity, and advance the institution's image as a whole. And then CU Smile. So currently working with CU Smile on a philanthropy collaboration before the year ends, trying to figure out what that may look like, but they're a great group of students and have made an amazing impact in the Ottawa community this year. We actually collaborated with them last summer, delivering lunch to healthcare workers at the different hospitals in Ottawa. CUSA Wellness Black History Month IG Live. So last Wednesday for Black History Month, the Wellness Center kicked off their Black to Us LGBTQ+ Community Wellness Week. And I was able to go on Instagram Live with coordinator Sarah Abbas to launch the Wellness Week and discuss my identity, obviously being both Black and queer, and Carleton's representation of the Black queer community as a whole. So you can find that on the Wellness Center's Instagram, and their week is actually still going on. So it's from Wednesday to Wednesday. So they have some prizes and some events, so make sure to check those out. Black at CU. So today, as a BIPOC student leader, alongside Tinu Ekawande from CUSA and 4 Black residence fellows, we helped navigate the conversation at Black at CU. We focus on our BIPOC community in residence and how Carleton overall can improve its efforts to support the Black community. One amazing idea that actually came from the discussion was having a residence floor for the Black community specifically. So a lot of students say how they find it hard to find people like Black friends in the Carleton community or folks who can relate to Black culture. So some students may benefit from this, whereas some Black students may just want to live on just another floor. However, I think it would be great that the option is there for the Black community. So that was just an idea that someone brought up. We'll see where it goes, but I think I'm going to bring it up to Laura's story as we're meeting with her tomorrow and see what housing thinks about it. And then the election. So the raw election is obviously right around the corner, scheduled to start on March 16th. So super exciting. Our elections team is hosting workshops, one on Tuesday at 7 p.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in running or thinking about it, definitely would encourage you to attend those workshops and learn more. Jenna, Sash, and I will also be there to answer any questions regarding our specific positions. And the elections team will actually be speaking later, so they'll definitely talk more about that. And that's all from me. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We're moving on to 5.2, which is the Vice President Administration Report. Sash, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, well, good evening, counselors. Just want to start off by saying we are reaching the midpoint of our winter semester. It's been quite the journey, and I know that many of you will be completing your first year of university. So just want to say congratulations. You've done an amazing job so far. And I'm really impressed by a lot of the work that I've seen by many of our counselors this year. So keep working hard and pushing through those midterms. We're almost at the finish line. And moving on from that, with regards to our Parliament Hill program, we're happy to report that a variety of students did get hired this year, even given the reduced number of participating MPs. Looking at the future of this program, the executive team and I are hoping to create a more streamlined system to deliver this opportunity in the future. Right now, we're looking at ways to increase marketing and implementing ways to gain feedback from MPs so they can also be a part of the design process and help future executive teams kind of implement it in a lot more of a concise and streamlined way to ensure that students can be hired even in future trouble years. If we run into other problems, there's still some sort of backbone that we have. And moving on from that, for programming this school year, RAW provided virtual awareness campaigns and events for the first time, such as Mask Up or Pack Up and Residents Rise Up. These were the first time we've delivered something completely online. And I've mentioned this before, it's been a really big learning experience for us to see what works and what doesn't. One of the best ways we've learned is through your feedback. So as we are unsure what sort of future the next administrative team may face, we want to ensure that what we learned can be passed down and that the next team can kind of pick up where we left off and and just make things even better. So with that being said, we are encouraging any counselors to please send any feedback, ideas, comments, or concerns regarding any of the virtual events we've had this year. And we hope to compile all this data into a document. Some short updates on our sustainability committee. This year, the focus has really been on getting the cafeteria to reduce its usage of single-use plastics. This has been a very slow development due to the ongoing changes caused by COVID restrictions. Recently, however, we were able to meet with the cafeteria administrators and discuss some solutions that we can try to implement. More updates about that will be given by our sustainability committee chair. And regarding our website and the upcoming elections, the university is no longer able to host RRRA's election page on their domain this year. So we've been working to transfer all the data over to our own website. We've been working closely with our elections team and the web development team to have an elections page up and running on our website soon. And in the near future, we also plan to have all of our elections information accessible from our website. The voting system, however, will still be operated and overseen by the university. Just the information itself will now be on RRRA's website. And lastly, a quick update on our on-campus store abstentions. Things are still looking good. Through the ups and downs of this school year, we have started to find a really good middle ground that works for us to help the store stay operational while still being financially stable. So on that account, we are good to go. And that about wraps it up for my updates. Thank you again, counselors. Keep up the great work. And back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Administration. With that being said, we're moving on to 5.3, which is the Vice President's Programming's report. Jenna, you now have the floor.
Hi, Council, and happy Sunday, everyone. So January and February have been very busy months, to say the least. I'm sure you all can agree with that. One of my policy points coming into my position was to increase winter programming. You know, obviously it's been kind of difficult because of COVID, but I wanted to start the semester off strong, and I got to work right away. So I was able to start the semester off by hosting 3 events within a month and a half. The first event I hosted in January was a speed mingling event in collaboration with CUSA. So each speed mingling event, I try to make it a little different from the others so that it's never repetitive and students like continue to come out. And I know that a lot of counselors here have been really supportive and come out to pretty much all of my speed mingling events. So I really do appreciate all of you counselors coming out. And like Sash said, I really do appreciate feedback as well. So if any of you counselors or anyone else has feedback towards the events that you have come, or even just ideas for upcoming events you want to see, I'd love to, you know, have your ideas come to life. So yeah. But yeah, so I try to make them different. So Morgan and I planned a version of speed mingling where we did controversial polls, breakout rooms, and a draw for prizes. This event was super successful and we had a really good participation rate, and I received a lot of great positive feedback from attendees. And on topic of speed mingling, we also hosted another speed mingling event in February. That was a special edition one. It was a blind speed mingling for Valentine's Day. So all the participants who came into the event had their cameras off and their names changed. So everyone was completely anonymous, and it was kind of like replicating blind dating. This event was actually a huge hit. It had one of our largest amounts of participation out of all of our speed mingling events other than Frosh. But once again, it was really great feedback, and people really did love like the aspect of being anonymous. They loved how the cameras were off and the names were changed. So it was kind of a mystery, and they said that they liked how, you know, they can kind of be more themselves. And lastly, in early February, RRRA collaborated with CAB to plan an epic drag bingo hosted by an amazing local Ottawa drag queen named Adriana Expose. This event included 6 rounds of bingo with epic prizes like a wireless speaker, wireless headphones, smartwatch, just a bunch of really awesome prizes, followed by a live drag performance and an interactive Q&A with Adriana. This event was also super popular. We had a huge turnout, and Adriana definitely had a lot of fans from Carleton come, so that was really fun. But yeah, that's really all the events we've had this past month. But for the future, I definitely plan to continue to try and increase the amount of winter programming and host as many events as possible, and work with my programming committee to really just bring students' ideas to life. So yeah, that's really it for me.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. With that being said, we're moving on to 6.0, which is committee reports. To start off, we're moving with the 6.1 Constitutional Review Committee. So if a member or chair of the Constitutional Review Committee now has the floor to bring up any updates.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Not much to report from the Constitution Policy Review Committee. We didn't meet since the emergency meeting. However, based off the general consensus of the meetings that we did have before that, I did prepare a few motions that'll be on the agenda later today, based on the ideas that we're throwing around at the committee. And those are, well, I can elaborate on later, but they're basically to amend our current impeachment policy and council bylaw. So yeah, that's basically all from me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Davin. With that being said, moving on to 6.2, which is the Food Services Committee. So if the member or chair from the Food Services Committee now has the floor to provide an update.
Hi, Council. So we just have a few updates for this month. There are bigger improvements for the CAF. There's a lot of reduction in terms of plastic bags and straws. More people are using reusable bags. There's also room for improvement in terms of me and Sash had a conversation about the bags used for the raw given bags. But yeah, there's also a more improved food. A lot of people have been saying there's also a suggestion to create more stations like a pasta station. The vegetables are better. The CAF is cleaner. There's also a talk to extend Oasis hours to at least 1 a.m. And yeah, that's it for the Food Services Committee. Just other small things like the pizza bags should be used for the pastries instead of the other way around and stuff like that. But otherwise it's good in terms of reduction of waste and improvement of the CAF.
Okay, thank you, Drew, for your report. With that being said, moving on to 6.3, which is the Residence Issues Committee. So if a member or chair of that committee now has the floor to bring up any reports.
Yeah, perfect. That will be me. So not much from us as well. We really just reflected on our Residence Rise Up campaign. So we really just realized that there was really good engagement from both our counselors and our students. The one problem that we did notice is that it was kind of hard to find campus departments to join our Instagram live. So maybe next time, whenever we run another event, just dig a little deeper in regard to that. And another thing, just as a general takeaway for any campaigns that are being run through RRRA, is just make sure that we're using posts as instead of Instagram stories, maybe, which makes the impact more permanent. The other thing that we were talking about is that at the time, obviously, we're in full lockdown, so common rooms were not available, and I believe they're still not open. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cool. Okay, so a lot of the common rooms have recycling bins, so they are currently unavailable, and a lot of floors don't even have recycling bins at all, so we want to work on making this more accessible. And finally, we're looking at ideas for possibly another campaign in March. We're just kind of brainstorming. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to send them over. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, moving on to 6.4, which is the Political Action and Sustainability Committee. So the member or chair from that committee now has the floor.
Hi, everyone. So we had our last meeting on February 11th. We're still focusing on projects to do with waste management, in particular, a plastic bag recycling in residence commons, as well as a board to lay out what can be put in the recycling, compost, etc. We also discussed our continuing plans for an awareness campaign to promote these utilities once they're in place. This has been very slow moving, as Sash said, due to how quickly restrictions are changing back and forth. However, during reading week, Sash and I met with cafeteria administrators to discuss the practicality of our ideas, and they were very receptive and think that it's very possible for our initiatives to go ahead. Once they ensure there's an available means of recycling plastic bags through the current waste management company, we can move forward with this. And we also brought to the attention of the cafeteria administrators that plastic bags and straws were still being prominently offered in the cafeteria. And as a result, plastic bags and straws are now only being given upon request. So that will do a lot in terms of reducing waste, we hope, and you can still get the bags and the straws if you need them. So we hope to keep working with both of these projects over the rest of the semester, and we'll update you with our progress next month.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. With that being said, moving on to 6.5, which is the Special Events and Community Outreach Committee. Member or chair now has the floor.
Hi everyone. So we had our last meeting today, actually. Jenna went over a lot of our past events in her report, so I'm just going to talk about the upcoming ones. We were thinking about having a Meet the Grads night. The idea of a gaming event was also brought up in our meeting. Team games in a tournament style, probably with different difficulty tiers, and it would be on Discord. We also discussed a replacement for residence formal. So ideas like an event with participation per floor, like in a common room if they're going to be open. A game night or like a scavenger hunt were also brought up. And lastly, we talked about an end of the year fundraiser. We might put something on like an Instagram story to ask what charities people want the money to go towards. And the fundraising like thing would be selling hoodies for each residence building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. With that being said, moving on to 6.6, which is the COVID-19 committee. So the member or chair now has the floor to provide a report.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Not much to report from us for this month. We worked on our February infographic, which we did Valentine's themed. It was super cute. We had little messages on them like, if you love me, you'll wear a mask and things like that. We hope to continue our infographic campaigns for the following months that we're in residence. And there hasn't been much else to report now that COVID-19 regulations are more so settled in the university and rules are more so understood. Things have been looking good for regulations in that, and that's all to report. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. With that being said, now moving on to motion 7.0, which is the CASG report. Do we have a representative from CASG today? I wasn't paying attention during the attendance portion, so I assume
No,
not.
we do not.
Yeah, there's no representative from, no.
Okay, 8.0, which is the CUSA report. Do we have a representative from CUSA? Nope.
No,
Okay.
I guess Kashi and Kisa just don't like raw. I don't know.
Okay. With that being said, moving on to motion 9.0. Sorry, I'm just gonna make sure. Jordan, can you scroll down to 9.0? Right there. Yeah, perfect. So I'm just going to present this motion to start off. So this motion is to enact amendments to policy, I don't know Roman numerals, so I'm just going to say policy V. I'm assuming that's 5, but I'm going to say policy V. Motion to enact amendments to policy V, which is the impeachment of raw constitution. Be it resolved that the following amendments to policy V, specifically impeachment, be enacted, striking out her or his from section 1.1 and or by 2/3 of the executive from section 1.4, appointment of replacement from section 1.5, and be heard by the executive subject to appeal to from section 1.6, and inserting all text shown here in red, which includes the following that is on the screen. This motion is being moved by Davin. With that being said, Davin, would you like to have the floor to explain the motion?
Of course, Mr. Chair. I'd like to motivate this motion.
Okay, so
and I can send the link to the full suite of changes to the chat if you like, or I can share my screen as well.
Yes, just give me a sec. Before we give you the floor to present that and present this motion, we need to vote on that. So I'm just relaunching the poll. So if we can all just vote to give Davin the floor to present this motion. Just reminding everyone to please vote. So far, we have not received quorum, so we cannot pass on the floor to Davin.
Sorry, again, Jenna, Sash, and I also have to vote. So I vote in favor, and I'm sure Jenna and Sash do too. So we have reached quorum. And also, just to answer Morgan's question, we are going to discuss it before actually voting on the motion. But right now, we're just voting to give him the opportunity to present the motion.
Yes, thank you for clearing that up, Jaden. I completely forgot that you guys can't vote because you guys are now co-hosts. So I've just shared the screen. As you can see, there's 17 votes plus 3 administrative votes. So that reaches the quorum of 18. With that being said, Davin, I will now pass on the floor to you to present this motion in further detail.
All right. Thank you, Q. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you guys see my screen right here?
No, I think I have to stop sharing.
Okay, let me turn it off and put it back on.
Sorry, I just stopped my screen, so you should.
Okay, so good?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jordan. So basically, all the changes I want to make to this policy are here in red. It's pretty summarized rather well in the motion itself. Basically, we just made this one section gender neutral. Down's not a big change, but the rest of section 1.0 will deal with like a more solidified procedure for actually impeaching any of the executives. So the original policy was really vague about it and how we'd actually go about impeaching someone. So it's in discussion with the committee, we thought it would be best to actually have a set procedure. So first, council will have to pass like a motion recommending impeachment, and they'd have to also like specify what they'd be impeached for. And then within 14 days, we'd either have a meeting of residents or a special meeting of council, depending on which council wants to actually do, shall be held. And then in that meeting, we're going to have a discussion about whether or not an impeachment should happen of an executive member. And there's going to be a vote as well. Upon successful passage of the vote, the executive will no longer hold their office, and they would also have to resign as directors of RRRA, the corporation. So that one's basically clarified there, because before you'd be impeached from your office, but I think you'd still be around as a director of RRRA, which might be a little problematic. And then in section 2.0 basically goes over like what the impeachable offenses are, which is like bribery, embezzlement, a bunch of white collar crimes up there, messing around with council, the constitutional board, or the elections office, violating the constitution, the bylaws or policies, flunking out of class, grossly violating the resident standards, committing an actual crime, or any other actions or like orders which kind of work against this organization operating well and ethically, right? Then this section here basically goes upon how the special impeachment meeting is going to like go down. And in our original policy, the only way to impeach the president was to gather 200 residents in a room and have 2/3 of those guys all agree to impeach the president, which is it's a rather difficult, like almost laughably difficult, compared to the impeachment procedures of CUSA or CASTI or any of the other major student governments. So basically, I added a provision where it can either happen in that original way, or like council can vote like for a 7/8 supermajority, which is basically everyone agreeing to impeach the president. Section 1.3 or A is not much, but section 3.2 removes one of the old provisions of the original policy, which says any of the VPs can be impeached by just a 2/3 vote of the executive, which I again thought was a little problematic because it basically means the president and any one VP can choose to impeach the other. And again, since before you could impeach someone for no reason, that could be a problem, especially next year when we have slates and independents all running in the election. So basically it was, I just changed that to strike that one out and say the president can't remove an executive member from office just by himself, and can only do it after council votes on impeachment. And then section 4.0 was basically changing the appointment. So like, sorry, a little confusing, but before, if one of the VPs was impeached, the president had the authority just to appoint his own replacement for that impeached VP. But this section just basically changes it to council now votes and appoints an acting vice president before there's an election. So that's basically all the changes I have to this impeachment proposal. I think it's mainly a bunch of common sense provisions that'll make the organization a little more fairer. Please let me know what you think. Ask any questions you so choose, and I give my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, Davin, thank you very much. With that being said, do any current voting members have anything to bring up regarding this motion before we move into voting? Okay, with that being said, we're still viewing Davin's screen. Can we switch back? Jordan, can you take over?
That should have worked.
Okay, perfect. So with that being said, from this motion presentation, be it further resolved that all sections of Policy 2 Executive Terms of Service, which are inconsistent with this policy as amended, be stricken and made of no effect to the extent of the inconsistency. This motion is being moved by Davin and seconded by Adeline. With that being said, I'm just relaunching the poll right now, and all voting members can now vote on this motion. Executives, please just privately message me if you are, oh wow, you guys are ahead of the game, thank you. Okay, with that being said, this motion clearly passes. Sorry, guys. We're now going to move on to motion 10.0. Motion 10.0 is to include Reddit as an official social media campaigning platform in the RRRA 2021 general election. Whereas this year's RRRA executive election is being held in a virtual format through the listed social media platforms of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Whereas Reddit is a social media platform containing 14,400 Carleton students and counting, which allow candidates to reach a larger demographic. Whereas all campaign posts on the platform would be required to include the official RRRA 2021 elections as a filter in order to keep track of candidates' campaign posts during the election period. Whereas all eligible candidates would be required to put forward their usernames to ensure transparency and accountability. Whereas the Carleton University subreddit also includes its own list of regulations to abide by, along with the moderators, to ensure the policing of the RRRA Electoral Code sections 10.3e. Whereas if a moderator of Reddit wishes and is eligible to run, they would be required to step down from their role for the duration of this election period. This would ensure that there is no conflict of interest, given that Reddit moderators assesses the policing of posts. This motion is being moved by Mira. Mira, would you like time to speak on this motion? Would you like the floor?
Yes, please.
Okay, with that being said, just relaunching the polls to vote in order to give Mira the floor to present more about this motion. Okay, with that being said, this motion passes. Mira, you now have the floor.
Great, thank you. I'm just good with Jordan's screen because my motion is just presented there. But I know that this was discussed at the emergency meeting just because it wasn't included as a list of social media platforms. I also would like to clarify that this would be brought to the Constitutional Board after if this passes. But I just think that Reddit is a very large social media platform that some students may use as opposed to Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or Facebook. And as I originally stated, is that it would allow for candidates to reach a larger demographic if they so choose, because of course candidates can choose which platforms to campaign on. But as stated, I have a few regulations that I think would help ensure accountability and transparency throughout the campaign, because I know that those are things that we're really aiming to do during this RRRA election. But yeah, I'm very much open to hearing any dialogue and discussion, because I think this would actually be very good to include in the raw election, especially I know it hasn't been done before, which can always come with some worry, I guess. But yeah, I'm completely open for discussion. And yeah, that's my motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. With that being said, before we move on to voting, do any voting members or non-voting members have any motions to present to enter a discussion?
I would request the access to speak, please, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frederick. With that being said, we need to vote in order to give Frederick the floor in order to present a point of inquiry upon this motion. So the poll has been relaunched. Okay, my apologies there. There was a little technical errors, but this motion passes. Frederick, you now have the floor.
Perfect. Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me, and thanks everyone for voting to allow me to speak tonight. And thanks, Raw Council, for inviting us back to the conversation. For those who don't know me, my name is Frederick Diebel, and I'm the Chief Electoral Officer for the upcoming Raw election. I'm a fourth-year political science student. My pronouns are he, him. First off, I'd like to thank my elections team, the two DEOs, Maggie and Simon. We've done awesome work so far, and I wanted to thank you for that, and to highlight to council that we've been putting in many hours to deliver this election to the residents community. So thanks for allowing me to speak on this motion. And this motion actually has been at the top of the election team's mind. And the DEOs and I have been working really hard to provide RRRA with a fair and transparent election and elections documents. And quite frankly, we don't see that happening with the allowance of Reddit as a campaign platform. To start off, the elections for the elections team, Reddit would be a very difficult campaign platform to administer compared to the other social medias that we have selected and we've put forward. On Reddit, there's no visible profile pictures. It does not have the personal aspect that elections strive on, and it would be very difficult to see if candidates are following the election rules if they can be anonymous. The anonymous culture of Reddit does not give the elections office much wiggle room to moderate any candidate's behavior that may go outside of the electoral code or their candidate contract, and the election accountability would be lost on this platform. This also brings the issue of neutrality and filtering discourse on Reddit. Unlike the campaign models we've put forward, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, the type of information that candidates may be able to pull up at the discretion of the electoral code and its policies, and the high bar that Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok have for political discourse. In the case of Reddit, candidates ultimately have their discourses filtered by other Carleton students, possibly including students that live in residence or not. This creates two issues. A, the compliance component of our role as electoral officers is essentially being contracted out to someone else to manage. And B, we cannot guarantee that these moderators will apply the same standards for what constitutes appropriate discourse as our elections office currently does. Reddit moderators are often anonymous and can choose whether to accept or decline the posts that go up. Our concern is that if one of the candidates is a moderator, they could decline other candidates' posts on the feed, and this would be a giant conflict of interest. This would also be a compliance issue, and it would be nearly impossible for the election staff to control. If we create an election subreddit ourselves, we would be the administrators. Therefore, we would be able to accept and decline posts that show up on the feed. This also presents a conflict of interest. If we as moderators, we could secretly accept or decline. posts that are going up. And it challenges the neutrality that the office holds dearly. We are not Reddit administrators, nor that it would be fair if we were. And that would be a serious conflict of interest. And if we go outside our terms of reference to an independent contractor to administer this type of form, this could be problematic. Additionally, there have been proposals about potentially allowing the elections office to have to be made moderators on the Carleton U subreddit. This becomes a logistical challenge where the cart is being placed before the horse. We cannot guarantee that the elections office would be accepted as moderators, and RRRA does not have within the scope of its authority to compel Reddit to make us moderators. If we were to allow Reddit and candidates to use anonymous accounts, we as an election team would have to have a registry of usernames and candidates. This is something that the elections officers are not in the business of doing, and the number of anonymous accounts on this platform is overwhelmingly higher to manage than other platforms. The social media platforms that are currently being allowed to give the elections team and other candidates close regard to monitor for elections violations with the hashtags and the tagging. This type of monitoring is simply not possible on Reddit. When looking at the recent events in the CUSA election, the negative side of student politics was prevalent. This is something myself, my team, and the student body does not want to see happen again. That being said, with the goal of positive student politics in this upcoming election, we as an election team believe that Reddit does not explicitly give RRRA Elections Office or Council room to implement a vision of positive politics. As for logistics of taking a proactive approach in monitoring content, Mr. Chair, we have exhausted all our options. The Elections Office would have a conflict of interest in using its discretion in putting up posts, and we cannot expect to grandstand our way into the subreddit administration. Even so, if council were to set the rules on how elections should be run on Reddit, what would the end product look like? And it could be different of what the moderators want. As the Chief Electoral Officer and behalf of the on behalf of the Elections Office, we strongly urge you and recommend you to vote down this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that being presented, would any members of this voting council like to motion to enter a period of discussion? Or are there any members that are looking forward to speaking more upon this motion? Okay, I see two hands. So we're gonna vote firstly for Davin to motion to speak. A reminder to executive to also be sending in their votes. Okay, this motion passes. Davin, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to make a motion to enter a discussion on Mira's item here. I think we should probably talk about it, especially in light of what our CEO has spoken about Reddit, so we can really just get into some engaging debate about it. Thank you.
Okay. Before we motion to open up the floor of discussion, I would also like to just go back and motion to give Mira the floor to speak first. Okay, so this poll I am relaunching is a motion to give the floor to Mira to speak before we enter a period of discussion. Okay, perfect. This motion passes. With that being said, Mira, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the election CEO, Frederick, for taking the time to speak about it. I know that it's not necessarily an issue, but a point of discussion that's obviously been brought up with the electoral team. And I appreciate all the work and effort that you guys have been putting in and continue to put in for this election. I'm very glad that we're going to be able to have a dialogue and continuing to discuss this topic. Like I said, I do really think that it is a platform that, although there's the opportunity for some negative discussion, I think that all social media platforms do hold that to account. Yeah, I look forward to having the floor opened. But again, I just want to take the time to thank the electoral team for having their statement and for the work that they're putting in.
Okay, thank you, Mira. With that being said, I'm just relaunching the poll to enter a period of open discussion upon this motion. With that being said, this motion was strike down. So we will not be moving forward into an open discussion. I will just be presenting the motion as it is, and we'll be moving into voting. So information transfer, sorry, before we start the information transfer, I know this motion is kind of confusing. So just to recap in an informal way, when you vote yes, you are voting in favor to include Reddit as an official social media campaigning platform in the RRRA 2021 general election. When you're voting no, you're voting to stand by the decision that is already been made, which is not to include Reddit within the social media platforms. So be it resolved that the RRRA Constitutional Board approve Reddit to be added to the list of official social media campaign platforms for the RRRA Executive 2021 election. Polling is launched. Reminder to all voting members to please vote and cast in your ballot. We love a good democracy. Okay. With that being said, and counting the executive's votes as well, this motion was strike down. Okay, we will now be moving on to motion 11.0, which is the motion to enact amendments to the bylaw of the Council of the RRRA Constitution. Before I butcher everything that's presented over here and reiterate, I'm just gonna let Davin, who's moved this motion, to present on this. So I'm just relaunching the polls to motion to give Davin the floor to present on this motion. Okay, and this motion passes. Davin, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jordan, should I share my screen again for the changes here?
Yeah, sorry, I'll end mine.
All right. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yeah.
All right, good. So basically these changes are to our first bylaw, which is about council. In continuing with the executive's implementation this year of building representatives instead of floor reps, I brought up an idea to our Constitution Policy Review Committee that perhaps we should make the number of representatives for every building proportional to the population of the building and not just one per floor, essentially. So I incorporated those changes into this document here. You can see them all in red. Most of the changes are kind of minor. Some of these you can just see that every time I get rid of the word floor and replace it with building. I clarified that the Charlottetown representative is not a voting member, which we didn't originally clarify. But the meat of this amendment comes in all this redlining right here, which basically just explains a mathematic formula for dividing representatives by building equally. It's called the Hamilton method or the largest remainder method. It's a bunch of real eggheady stuff, but basically it ensures that our number of representatives for every building is proportional, right? And you can see the changes here. In speaking with counselors over the past week and members of the committee, we also realized, well, that it would probably be beneficial to preserve the number of floor reps as we transition them into building reps. Originally, I had kept the number of representatives the same at 63, but this resulted in some houses like Lanark and Renfrew losing counselors. But under this new reformed amended amendment, all of the buildings will keep the number of counselors that they have now, but some of them will be added more to top up in order to keep the proportionality between buildings. You can see the changes here. Some of them are unchanged. Lanark, Renfrew, Grenville, and Russell all have the same number of counselors. Dundas and Stormont get 1 extra. Glengarry gets 3 more. Leeds and Prescott get 3 more. Frontenac is also unchanged, 3. And Lennox and Addington gets 6 more counselors. I think this would be good for a number of reasons. It would keep the balance between buildings to be proportional to population, which is always good. It'll add a lot more voices onto council than before. Before our floor elections were restricted by each floor, and we definitely would have had a more full council now if everyone who ran in a floor rep election was just pulled into one big election for the entire building. So I think that would be great to foster more diverse and unique voices for each building here in residence, and the fact that we don't actually reduce any building from their number of floors, we grandfather in their number. It kind of preserves the kind of balance we have now and ensures that nobody's voice is taken away in order to enable anyone else's. And yeah, the rest of that basically just clarifies that the CEO or the chair of council will make public all the calculations that are made under this formula here. And it really just reworded this provision about officers of council because, you know, grammar or whatever, the clerk and the chair. And yeah, that's about all the changes for this bylaw here. You know, if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to move for a motion of open debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Davin. With that being said, do any voting members or councilors would like to open debate? Please raise your hand. Perfect. Thank you, Mira. You now have the floor. Is that a motion to open discussion and debate?
Sure, yeah.
No worries. Okay, now relaunching the poll. This poll is to motion to enter debate. Okay, with that being said, this motion passes. Just for a general recap, anyone may be confused. As you can see, when I shared the results, you can see 15 yeses plus 3 executives voted yay, which brings the total to 18, which is quorum. So this motion passes. Reminder, this is an open debate, so no one needs to be granted speaking rights. Everyone can unmute themselves and talk freely about the motion that's being presented on the screen.
So I can just talk?
Yeah, it's
Okay, sweet. Okay. So first I'm just gonna say, Davin, great work with that. That's like such a lot of work that you've put in. Here's my thing with it. Wow, that's already sounds fun. But RRRA already has, from what I've seen, I mean, obviously I'm in first year, so this is my interpretation of RRRA, but I know even in past years, just involvement and just participation on council in general has been relatively low. So I feel that even though you're adding like the opportunity for people to get involved in RRRA, it may like reflect badly just because the participation rate will hypothetically remain low, since you're like, I think you said that it'd be like 83 seats or something on RRRA. So I don't know, that's just my perspective. I think what you're trying to do is good, but at the end of the day, you're just going to add more empty seats, which unfortunately, although we would like everybody to participate, the grand majority of people probably won't, but that's just my perspective.
Thank you, Mira. And if I may, that does make a lot of sense. And I really do understand there's only so much that you can legislate for people to participate. I guess what I'm really, the sentiment that I have behind this motion is if you build it, they will come, right? If we offer more opportunities for people to come and join RRRA, I think it's very likely that they will. I was just pointing to our earlier floor up election in which we had in some floors 2, 3, 4 candidates running and only one of them would actually win, whereas we have so many empty floors with no candidates and nobody ran. If we allowed those people who ran on one of those floors where there was a contested election, and if they ran in a big election for the entire building, they probably would be elected and we'd have way fewer empty buildings than we do now in terms of empty seats. And I understand that I might mess with the proportion of counselors who actually attend, but we are currently around 30 or 40% capacity of the 60 seats we already have. I think any improvement in the raw numbers would be pretty raw with a W, not RRRA. And the raw numbers would probably be pretty beneficial in my mind, just to get more counselors on here and participating. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what kind of effect it's going to have on the percentage of empty seats we'll have here on council. I just believe in, number one, the principle that no representative of any one building should have more of a population weight to their vote than any of the others. And I also would like to foster and encourage more people to get involved here with RRRA Council. There's only so much you can legislate to do those things, but I think this is basically as much as any one of us or even our entire organization can really do to get people involved in RRRA Council. So that's just my thoughts behind this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, reminder that the floor is open to any voting members of council, including executives, to speak on this motion.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate Davin's point. One of the main reasons that we want to review this part of the Constitution this year was because of the COVID restrictions, as many buildings closed, and that really hurt numbers for our council as well. Another thing that Davin brought up, people who ran in the same floor, under the old model, only one person could be in council, and that really limited a lot of people who were actively trying to be involved. And given already the low number this year in the buildings that are closed, we thought this was really unfair. Students who want to be involved should always be given the opportunity, especially for something like this, where the entry to be involved is very low. And this is a great learning opportunity experience that students can use in their first year. So we think that increasing the capacity for more students to be involved, and if that capacity is there and students want to be involved, then they can. But in the past models, it really was more limiting, and we want to change that.
If I could speak on this quickly, I would say that an added sort of like stipulation needs to be added to this before it passes, being that if there is, say, someone who runs from every single floor, if you're running for that floor, you should have that position before you have like 3 people from one floor, because it could just pool into one floor, and you can't necessarily say that people from other floors can represent what is going on, like one above or below you, because I couldn't say that I accurately represent like third or second floor of this building because I don't communicate with them every day. I don't like live with them and things like that. So I would say that needs to be added before this passes to ensure like accurate representation of the building and the residents population.
Yeah, just wanted to add to that. So one of the reasons that we thought building reps would be better this year as well is because in past years, the term floor representative was a bit misleading. People thought they were representing the floor and the interests of their floor, when in reality, counselors who are taking part of council or being involved, they don't actually affect anything that happens in their floor per se. There's nothing specifically that RRRA can implement that would only govern a certain floor in a building. That kind of jurisdiction kind of falls within residents' life and maybe the RF that lives on that floor. So that's why we thought it was a bit misleading anyhow. Being a building representative, you kind of represent just that building on campus, but ultimately anyone on council, especially anyone on RRRA council, is representing the residents community as a whole when we focus on issues as a residence as a whole, rather than residents or issues just involving one person's floor. So this is the reason that we want to keep it building reps. And this is also why we don't think, even if a lot of building reps were to be on the same floor of a building, it wouldn't actually affect any of the issues that they're dealing with, and anything that they do vote on would still be voted on as RRRA's entire scope rather than just a certain floor.
Just to build on that, I would say that it doesn't necessarily affect what is like directly happening on the floor, but it does affect residents' life as a whole. And it's a matter of who you're representing and who's having accurate representation. So I think that there should be representation for like each separate constituency so that everyone's voice can be heard by someone who maybe knows them more personally.
Okay, Joy, you can speak. You have the floor.
I think what the last person said makes sense. Like we actually spoke about this off the meeting, and I was saying that in some places it's kind of, I don't know what's the word. Like, okay, take for example somewhere like Glengarry. It's more first years, and you know, a certain ethnic group, like you. It's a system, it's a software that matches people. So they tend to match people from the same area and the same programs and stuff like that. So we can have completely different issues. And I feel like if like there's most of the counselors are from one specific floor or one specific building, it would like make the voting and like the whole idea is like just kind of like not diverse enough. That's basically what I'm saying. So yeah, the other person had like I feel like the floor system is better, but I do understand where Sash meant by it's misleading. But I think the floor system is better because it does actually, even though there might be more people on a floor and less people on other floors, it does represent like each like group, like there's representation, there's equity. It's more about equity than equality, I feel, if that makes sense.
Okay. I know I'm not a voting member. However, I just want to like bring something up on this motion that Sash, I think you should know about, is that if you do open up this motion and, you know, expand the opportunities for students on residence to join and become a full representative, with that being said, you'd have to increase quorum. And I don't know, just from my past 3 years on RRRA Council, it has been, you know, a difficulty to meet quorum. So with that being said, if you do expand it, it would be harder to meet quorum, which would negatively affect the businesses that we present during RRRA Council. So with that being said, you could put in, any members can put in an amendment that specifically would state that we're trying to increase representatives but not move quorum, and that would stick into place. Morgan, I know you also brought up maybe bringing up an amendment. So if you do have any wording, you can, you know, motion to bring an amendment to this motion, and then we can vote upon that and move forward with that. I see a bunch of hands up, so I'll go to Mira first, then Davin, sorry, not Davin, Mira first, then Chewy, then Joy.
Yeah, I think it's just something that was brought up is that we were referring to this year. And like, I know that we keep saying this a lot, but we can't base our decisions on what's happened this year because obviously a global pandemic does not happen every single year. But I think honestly, the objective is very good because we're trying to increase representation. But at the end of the day, I think that like, obviously we have the building reps for this year, but I think floor reps in general on a regular year do ultimately serve like the proper purpose because you have representation or trying to get representation from every single floor in every single building. And yes, there are buildings shut down right now, but that's just because like obviously this year is virtual and we have it for like quarantine and stuff. So it's a good like idea, but I just think in practice it would make RAW more difficult to like kind of like what Q said, just like to have meetings and quorum and stuff. I think it would just make it more difficult.
Okay, Drew, you can go ahead.
So that was a great point, Sash. I think that's a really good point to bring out and like increase engagement and stuff. But speaking from personal experience, like what Mira said, this was a pandemic, so things are differently. But I remember when I ran, I was against 3 other people, and in the floor of just 20 people, that was 1/5 of our population. If we were to do this, basically what would happen was that the other people I ran against would represent other floors, and I personally talked to people on my floor to know what their concerns are and stuff like that. So if these other people who I ran against, let's say theoretically they represented the first floor of Grenville, et cetera, I don't think that would produce accurate quality or accurate data for what's needed to be on. There's not enough representation in terms of all of us are on the same floor. It's so condensed that we can't actually liquefy what the information that we need in terms of everyone's floor. And what Joy said as well, we do need more representation. So I think if this happens, what if a bunch of, let's say, first years next year are popular people, they all won, and they're all in one floor, then they're just going to do things that benefit them, or we don't really know what they're going to do, but they're going to do things that are in their interest and not really interest of the whole building as a sense. And I think while it is good to increase engagement, I do think that we can do this through other things, such as either increasing the marketing of it or having more incentives to do so per floor, but not really as a building.
Thank you. With that being said, Joy.
In the spirit of breaking up solutions instead of problems, Sash said something about more people wanting to get involved in school activities and stuff like that. And I did actually, when I was running, I did really pray that I wasn't running against anybody. So I think that still maintaining the floor representation, we could have like something like building reps, which would be like an additional, like, like let's say if like what Drew said, if like 3 people run and okay, 1 person wins, that person is the floor rep. But if like the other 2 have like meet like a certain number of like votes, maybe we could make them like a building representation, a building rep, and they would still attend the meetings and have like rights and stuff like that. And that I feel like that way we could preserve like the diversity and also help people to be more involved in like society and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, Joy. Davin?
Well, thanks everyone for your suggestions, and I just want to clear up a few things about the motion and what it actually does and kind of like my principle behind it. Number 1, quorum. This motion wouldn't actually affect our quorum because our quorum is listed in the Constitution as an absolute value. It's 18 people in a meeting. It's not like it's not a formula, so it's not based on the number of total counselors, the number of counselors present. So even though this would change the number of total counselors by changing the number of building reps, it wouldn't touch quorum really. So I don't think that would be a problem. Furthermore, in terms of the pandemic, I understand that we transitioned to building reps because of the pandemic, but I believe that they are they're a good option in and of themselves, right? And who's to say how long this pandemic is actually going to last, right? The government says they're going to get a vaccine rollout by September, but lots of medical experts say that just because everyone has a vaccine doesn't mean that COVID is going to go away as an epidemic, right? And who's to say the government isn't going to bungle our pandemic response like they sometimes have been, especially provincially, right? So I just wanted to build a system that would last if the pandemic continues and would also work even in a non-pandemic year, right? And to that effect, I'm thinking, I understand what Drew was saying about if some of the other people from his floor, from the third floor, also won. It's on my mind that they'd be representing the first floor, the second floor, the fourth floor of Grenville. It's less than Grenville has 4 floors and 1 representative for each floor. Then Grenville's 1 building, they have 4 at-large councillors, each one of them representing the whole building, right? And that's really just my mentality behind it, to really transition into building reps. Because right now what we basically have is floor reps with the label of building reps on top of it, right? Which does make it a little more convenient for adding members just piecemeal through the rest of the year. But for the actual floor representative, building representative election at the beginning of the year, it doesn't change that, which is what I kind of wanted to focus on, right? And in general, the principle behind all of these amendments is, I was just thinking, Glengarry, Lennox, they have 70 to 80 people for each floor. That's just how many beds there are. But Russell, Grenville, Lanark, Renfrew, they have like between 40 to 48 people on every floor, right? And are we really going to say here on this council that just because a floor rep comes from Grenville or Russell, that they in fact have twice the amount of vote as a member from Lennox or Glengarry? I just wanted to make it all equal for all members throughout every floor. I didn't want to silence any diverse ethnic groups at all either. Which is why that anyone from any floor still has an equal shot of winning the building rep election as anyone from any other floor, right? So yeah, maybe you have a bunch of popular kids from one floor, but they still, each one of them has to have the support of the entire building in the election. So, even getting to that stumbling point would be pretty difficult. So in general, I think I'm completely open to any amendments, but I believe that this motion and the principle that it supports is going to be good, not only for ensuring the equality between all councillors here in RRA, but also in trying to foster, as much as can be legislated, more participation and more voices here on RRA Council. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Davin. Victoria, you now have the floor.
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to bring a sort of perspective that is outside of the COVID experience. Last year, I was very lucky because I had plenty of friends who lived on residence. So I was able to experience that community a little bit and see how everything went and hear opinions about RRA and the residence experience. And I'd just like to say that I do think this would work very well in a non-COVID situation, given that there was a lot more interplay between different floors and different buildings. People had a lot more open conversations, visited different buildings, different floors quite more often. And within classes and transportation, you spoke a lot about residence issues. So I do think it would work much better in such a situation, and I do think it would increase participation, especially given the fact that it can be extremely stressful running against people on your own floor, whereas garnering the support of a building is, I don't want to say easier, but it can feel more comforting given the fact that you don't have to be actively competitive against people that you may be forming friendships with. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Morgan?
I just wanted to touch on the representing like your floor thing. So I know some people probably do feel like they're representing their floor, but I know myself and a few other counselors feel that they're not really representing their floor. My floor isn't exactly interested in a lot of things. There's only 7 people on my floor, first of all. But I just don't really talk to any of them. None of them really have displayed any interest towards me, like sharing their ideas with me. However, I do have friends on other floors that have like shared their opinions with me. So if I were a building representative, I would be sharing my ideas from people from other floors and not just my own, because you can't really guarantee that every floor is going to, like, you're going to be friends with the people on your floor, and that they're going to share their opinions and their thoughts with you, and then you can bring them to council. It's like you can find other people from your building as well. There's also emails and other ways to contact everyone on your floor if you wanted opinions from everyone.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this motion?
Yeah, sorry, Q, I didn't have the ability to put my hand up because I think as a host, I don't have the icon, but those were some amazing points brought up by counselors. Thank you for bringing that up. Many of the things that I wasn't aware of, so I'm glad to hear you guys' ideas and opinions on that. But going back to what Davin said, a lot of it has been addressed, and really that floor rep versus building rep is really that change in mentality and wording, because even as a floor rep in times past, you were really affecting things that happen on campus as a whole. There's nothing that RRRA can do to affect what happens in one singular floor in a building. That's just not our scope, and we don't really focus on doing anything that specific. So that being said, this is why we feel that a building rep is more of a accurate term for what a council member would be. And as a building rep, as a building representative, the mentality would be that as a building rep, you're representing your building, so students can outreach to other floors. And even if there was a cluster in the same floor, the issues that they would maybe, if they tried to collude and try to make a certain thing happen on their floor, there really wouldn't be the capacity to have that at RRRA, because we wouldn't vote on something like that. Especially if they say, hey, a lot of us counselors on 7th want to do this, they would have to get the vote of the entire RRRA council. And, that really reflects council as a whole. So again, that whole idea of council representatives not actually being able to dictate what happens on that particular floor, but more so what happens in residence in general. This is, as you guys have seen over the past months, whenever we meet at council, a lot of things we discuss are very broad and general that affect the entire community. So those are the points that I just want to bring up in regards to people's comments and concerns about that. But again, I am very open to making some amendments, and I do take into some of these considerations. I will actually look over, and I think a little bit more tweaking will be needed, but very valid in the end. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, with that being said, do we have any other voting members or non-members willing to speak on this matter? Okay, the silence is taken as a no. We'll now be moving into voting on this amendment. I don't see any specific information transfer, but information transfer, be it resolved that the RRRA council votes to approve the amendments to the bylaws that are listed in the motion that were brought up by Davin. So moved by Davin and seconded by Caitlin. The polling and voting has now been launched. Okay, last call for voting. Okay, unfortunately, this motion has not passed. There were 12 in favor, 6 against, 12 in favor plus 3 executives. Still does not meet the quorum of 18, so this motion has not passed, and the amendment to the bylaws should not be enacted. Okay, with that being said, I just realized that's my catchphrase. I say that with that being said often, huh? Okay. Moving on, 12.0, other business. Do we have any other businesses? Do any non-voting members, counselors, or executives have any other business to motion to bring up to discuss?
I would just like to rise on a point of order, Mr. Chair. Just like to provide an update from the elections team, and it'll be very brief.
Okay, thank you. Voting on this is now open. Okay, this motion passes with 15 plus 3 executives equaling 18 meeting quorum. Frederick, you now have the floor.
Perfect, thank you. And then I just wanted to mention that our social medias are up. There we go. Maggie's put all our social medias in the chat. So do follow them. Those are where all the important updates for the election are going to come. We do have a beautiful website, webpage running thanks to Jordan. So if we can all give Jordan a virtual applause for doing that, that would be great. There it is. All the important information's on there. And we have all the important dates, and we will be moving a lot more stuff on the website while more stuff comes in and we put out more stuff as the elections team. And then we are hosting 2 Elections 101 nights that we've been working hard on. So like Jay said, Tuesday, March 2nd and Thursday, March 4th, both at 7 p.m. And both of the elections nights will have the same content. So you can pick and choose if one day doesn't work for you. That's why we've done 2 days. And the current executive will be there if you want to ask questions about their position, as well as the electoral team will be there to answer any questions regarding the election. So thanks a lot. Thanks to council for having us again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that being said, do any councilors or non-voting members have anything else to bring up from other businesses? That silence equals no. Moving on, 13.0, which is adjournment. Motion to adjourn this meeting. The poll has been launched. This usually ends up being the only motion that gets full 100% votes. Okay, and as always, we got full 100% votes. So the motion, sorry, word jumble. The meeting is now adjourned. With that being said, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We know this was a typically long meeting that had a lot of different motions and amendments and different confusion. I hope everyone has learned something today and felt as if they're being part of a community. With that being said, thank you. Meeting is now done.